Welcome to the DNA podcast. So glad you joined us. I'm excited about the episode we have for you today. We've been, over the last month, we were talking about leading with vision and what it looks like to lead with vision. And most of us pastors and leaders tend to have this problem. We usually have more vision than we have provision. And it's always the challenge to walk by faith and access the provision that God's given us for the things that He's called us to do. But today, we want to specifically talk about that whole subject of provision. And we're going to talk about moving from vision to funding and how to find the money already assigned to your mission. And we are just honored to have two special guests with us on our podcast today. We have Dianna Rivera, who co-founded Citi Church in Miami with her husband, Tony Rivera. And they are doing an incredible work in Miami. Also joining with her is Keisha Pearson, who serves right there with them at Citi Church in Miami. They are doing incredible things in the city of Miami that's actually transforming the city that they're called to. And they've tapped into some great resources that have helped them to fund the things that God's called them to do. Because if you look at the size church they are, you would say they probably shouldn't have the footprint in Miami that they do. But the way God's blessed them and the things that they have discovered along the way have helped them to have a reach that's far beyond maybe the size church you would say that they have. And so it's incredible what God's doing at Citi Church. But the thing that is really awesome is that they have co-authored this book called Provision for the Vision. So Dianna and Keisha, it is awesome to have you with us today. We're honored that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Here.
Cool. Well, let's just jump right in. Your book says that funding your vision is easier than most people think, and that might be kind of mind-blowing for a lot of pastors today. But what do you think makes it hard, makes it feel hard to pastors to fund the vision, and maybe what is it we're missing?
Well, sometimes funding the question is that it feels hard, and sometimes what is hard is just new. And when it comes to grant funding, oftentimes pastors were not taught how to do that. We're not really exposed to grant funding, or we hear a lot of negative things around it, which creates fears because we don't understand. But for us, we just say it's new. And if we approach it as something that's just new to be discovered, then it becomes a little bit less hard, and you begin to discover things that you didn't know before, ways that are possible, funding streams that might become possible in our churches or in our ministries and nonprofits.
Yeah, so why don't you just tell me a little bit about some of the ministries and outreach programs that you guys have there at Citi Church that you've been able to do because of these grant fundings?
Yeah, I'll jump into this one. So essentially, if you might not have context of our location and demographic, but we are in probably one of the lowest socioeconomic areas of Miami. And so when you think about a church and being able to provide services and ministries and things like that, if we were dependent on the tithes and offering to sustain those ministries, it would not be possible. And so through our unique creative ways that God has opened doors for funding for us, we've been able to do after-school programming for all ages, from kindergarten all the way through high school. We've done culinary arts programs, we've done arts programs, we've done youth and business programs. We've had a football team, we've had a baseball team. We have a school, we have a private Christian school that is funded 95%, and I'm probably being a little modest on that, with outside funding that we've been able to do. We've done hosts of events, community events, backpack giveaways, Easter egg hunts. I mean, the list goes on, that essentially the majority of the ministries that have flown out of what we do has come through some type of outside funding.
That's incredible. Incredible. So just to make sure everybody's aware, when we say grant funding, what are we talking about in plain language?
Yeah, I'll tag that one as well, because I kind of threw it in there sort of nonchalantly. We say grant funding. Grant funding is a term when you think about a grant. It's monies or products or services, things that you receive that you don't have to pay back. So broaden the term, because grant funding has lots of different sectors to it. It could be formal applications that are intense and have a lot of pages that have to go through it, or it could just be as simply as a partnership with an organization that donates a product or service that you're in need of, that for a church, it's now money or products that you've received that your budget doesn't have to pay for. So when we think about grant funding, we're not just limiting it to a formal grant process, although that is a big part of what we've been involved in. But any outside funding that comes into your organization outside of tithe and offering that you don't have to pay back, that fits in the scope of what we consider grant funding.
Yeah. So what kind of church initiatives are then most fundable, and what are some that might not be a fit at all?
So when you think about grant funders, they want to impact the community, right? And every funder has different initiatives that they're after, things that are important to them. The same kind of way that churches. Some churches focus on outreach ministries. Some have a big heart for homeless or children or teenagers or the elderly. And there's grant funders that have the same kind of initiatives in each of our communities. Most grant funders are looking for services to be provided. So they're not looking to build a building or to fund the expansion of the sanctuary. They may not be looking to pave the parking lot that needs redone or buy you a new sign, but they're looking for helping you multiply the impact that you already have. There's people sitting in the congregation. There's vision within the hearts of leaders that want to hopefully expand the kingdom of God in our cities, in our communities, whether they're large or small. Oftentimes, in order to reach more people, it may take more funding. That's where grant funders come in to help fund ministry that can go out. We become the hands and the feet, and they become the providers financially.
That's incredible. So I'm guessing there's a lot of things that pastors, or different things that pastors might believe about grant funding. Maybe you'd call them myths. I believe you address a lot of them here in the book. But what are some of those most common myths that pastors hold, and what's the reality?
Well, there's lots of myths that we talk about in our book, and that we give lots of explanations about them. Because when we believe something that's not true, it becomes a barrier, and oftentimes it becomes a limitation that we don't even explore. And when, as pastors, we believe that it's not for us, or we can't do it, or it's too hard, or too complicated, or I'm too small, then we count ourselves out. But many of these myths are not even true. One in particular is saying that churches can't get grants. Many people think churches can't get grants because I'll have to compromise my faith. But that's not necessarily true. Many grant funders fund churches. Now, there are some that don't, but many churches are 501c3 nonprofits that qualify for lots of grants out that are available all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think one of the myths that might be out there, and maybe especially when it comes to potential like grants that come from the government, is that the funders will control us. But what have you guys experienced? What are the real boundaries, and how do you honor the requirements that funders have without compromising your mission, your vision, and convictions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because oftentimes when we think about grant funding, we can think of those as two separate things that you're trying to bring together that don't match. And that is in itself really contrary to what grant funding is about. Grant funding is about alignment. Mm-hmm. You're looking for like-minded, like vision. So if I am a pastor or ministry and I'm looking for grant funding, I'm not going to go look for funding in an area that's something that doesn't already align. And so the beauty of grant funding is that when you find someone that has a like heart, then the boundaries become very shared, because you're looking for programs and services and outreach and all of those things that, hey, you want to reach children? I want to reach children too. You want to see them succeed in education, or you want to see them get business skills? I want to see them get business skills too. So when you look at it from a perspective of alignment, it's not that the grant funder is controlling you. It's like you're looking at it in terms of a partnership, right? They have money for some initiative that they want to fund. If I, as a pastor or a leader or a ministry, have the same heart, then I come in alignment with that. And it's not that they're controlling me, it's that we're coming to the table for an equal partnership. And they're saying, this is what I want to see happen. And I'm saying, as the church or ministry, that yes, I can provide those services. So no one's controlling me. I am entering into a partnership fully aligned and in agreement with that. And that is sometimes the common myth that people think, because when we think about funding, especially for churches and ministries, I have this project that I want funded. Let me go find someone to fund my thing. Well, that's a little lopsided and not really a true picture of partnership. It's like, what am I doing and who else is doing and has the same heart behind what I'm doing, and see if I can find someone that I can meet in the middle with, and that we become strategic partners together. And so what we have found in our experience is that grant funding works best out of that partnership, not out of just trying to match dollars to fund a pet project that we might have, but I'm looking for lifelong relationships in this journey, and grant funding just happens to be the avenue that comes.
I love the idea of talking about partnerships and relationships. That keeps it kingdom focused, right? I think
Yes,
we've all learned, right? Everything flows out of relationships, so that's incredible. Absolutely. So I know this, so I'm not like guessing this, but I know that many of the organizations and funds that you get grants from there might not be like Christian centered at all. They might just be organizations that are philanthropical, like they want to get involved in philanthropy, helping the community, etc. So how do you translate kingdom language into community outcomes funders understand, but you're staying true to who you are? How do you guys do that?
That's a really good question. One thing that we do is that we realize that many times as a church, we can have Christian lingo or kingdom-minded lingo that only we understand within our organization. Mm-hmm. But if we were to break it down, one thing that we've done is we have a vision statement that is in our church, and we have a vision statement that we use in grant funding that means the same thing, right? But we take out the lingo. So we're looking to build a supportive community, to strengthen families, right? That kind of language aligns with the kingdom. It doesn't have a scripture verse with it. It doesn't have the Christian lingo, but it means the same thing. If we get broader in our terms and think, let me not just talk our family language that we all understand within our churches, but speak in a way that our cities, most agencies that are grant funders want to see good things happen. Mm-hmm. They want to see children succeed. They want to see teenagers stay off of drugs. They want to see young people be prepared for college. Well, some of those things as a church, we want the same thing too, but we put our kingdom language in our box around it. But if we get broader, we can say, okay, I can align with that because they're actually looking for the same thing I am. Now we know that we have the secret sauce. We know we have the power of the Holy Spirit, that when people come in contact with us, they're going to experience Jesus because he's within us. And I don't have to go out and not every word I say has to say it. It's like who is it? I forget his name that said that preach Jesus and if necessary, use words.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it's so important because we do believe that the Bible says the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, right? But then sometimes we're afraid to actually make an ask of people that aren't yet believers, thinking that they won't understand. But I think the reality is there's a lot of good people out there that maybe, I'm going to use the word pre-believers, right? That have funds and they want to leave a legacy and they want to make a difference in the earth. And why not get those funds to use it for kingdom purposes?
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm guessing that and I know from reading the book, that oftentimes the organizations that you're getting the grants from will have certain requirements, right? Certain things you have to follow. And so what are some of those things that a pastor leader needs to be aware of? Maybe even what would they need to get in order prior to even going out to look for a grant?
That's a great question, and something that we actually help pastors and faith-based nonprofits do is to become grant ready, because it is important that there are things that you already have in order. One is, most of the time, most funders want to know that you are a 501c3. Now, you can operate as a nonprofit without one, but it's best to have one. It's best to have your tax exempt ID. It's best to have a SAM cage code. It's best to have your finances in order, and even have an external audit is something that's also helpful. Something that sometimes churches are afraid to do, but it actually strengthens you as a ministry to have one. There's nothing to be afraid of. Some other things is just to have your leadership in order, right? To have a team of people that care about grant funding and that are interested in it, that can give themselves to it. Sometimes in our churches, we wear lots of different hats, and if we're not careful, then we'll be consumed with all the other things, and not give attention to being prepared to become grant fundable. So it's important to have a dedicated maybe team that is focused on that to become fundable within your church or your faith-based nonprofit, to become fundable.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. It's in addition to all the formal things, I think it's having a clear vision of what it is that the church or ministry wants to accomplish. Because without having that clarity, it's hard to find alignment. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. But when that vision is clear, then you can easily step into spaces and say, yes, this aligns with what we do, so that it doesn't become burdensome, but it flows naturally out of the vision that the church already has.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was thinking about a couple things while you were talking. First of all, can you talk a little bit more about really what you mean about getting your leadership in order? Because I think when you said that, everybody might have something in mind of what that means. But specifically, Dianna, what were you referring to when you were talking about having your leadership in order?
I think one is aligning your vision and having people, and I'm talking about having people that are dedicated around a vision, right? Because we might think, oh, I just want to go out and grant funding. But in order to be ready, one, we have to clarify the vision, and two, we have to have the right team. So having the right team in order doesn't mean that they're paid staff. There could be volunteer, but you've got a team of people that are saying, yes, we can get behind this vision. We've got the time, the energy, the bandwidth to give ourselves to it, to prepare our church to go after grant funding. And we're working together. Yeah. If we're all too busy, too wore out, and going in lots of different directions, it might not be the right time. Or maybe we're going to have to look into our congregations to find more people, because we do believe that what you need is within your house, right? Or if it's not a church, if it's a faith-based nonprofit, then it's finding other stakeholders that can come alongside and help to have the time, to have the resources, to have the knowledge, to be able to align around a vision to go after the funding.
So really, you're talking about having leadership in order, people behind it, so that when you actually access those funds, you're operating in trust within the partnership that you formed, so that you're actually able to do what you said you were going to do when you access the funds.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, in addition to having the team, also decision-making structure needs to be clear. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that is something that any grant funder wants to know, right? Who makes the final decision? Who's authorized? If there are issues, if there are changes that need to happen, that you've already thought about it. For us, it's simple. There are lots of decisions that I make. There's some decisions that she makes. There's decisions that when we talk about roles and positions within the grant funder, that we have already decided who can make those decisions, because no one wants to get caught up in, well, we can't move forward because we need to wait until there's a board meeting and that's not happening for another 3 months. That kind of creates a bottleneck. And so having a clear decision-making structure, even when it comes to operations of the grant, when it comes to finances, who's gonna have access to be able to spend the funds, how are they gonna do that? Those are things that will also be helpful in the decision-making process.
Yeah, and I'm making this up, and I might be wrong, so you can just say, no, that doesn't matter. I'm also making up that some of the things that these funders could be interested in is like what policies and procedures are in place to protect the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so do you often have to provide like a policy manual to the funders?
Generally, you don't have to provide a policy manual, but they do want to know about your organizational structure. And I'll define it this way. There are some churches that are strictly board-run churches, right? So you may have people every day that are handling the day-to-day operations, but any major decision has to go through a board. Well, that's important to a grant funder. They want to know that. Then you have other organizations where they've delegated some of that responsibility. The board is still fully in control, but when it comes to grant operation, decision making, maybe there's a COO in place, or maybe there's a program director kind of person in place that has the ability to make those decisions. Those become really important. And knowing like what your internal controls are, those are things that they may not ask you for a manual, but they will ask you administratively how the organization operates. And it's not, and let me say this, it's not that they're looking for a specific process for how that happens. They just want to know that you have clarity on how that works. No,
that's really good. That's really good. Thank you. So if a pastor's never managed a funded program before, what basic leadership rhythms will they need to have in place?
What basic leadership rhythms do they need to have in place?
So you want me to explain what I'm thinking about here a little bit?
Yeah, explain what you mean by that.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, so, we have pastors of varying size churches, right? So we have some that are highly organized and they have staffs and they're doing regular meetings with their team, holding them accountable to deadlines, follow-up, checking in to make sure things are good. And then you have people from smaller churches that, they have incredible people in their church, but their systems of holding people accountable to commitments, may I say, especially if it's volunteers, is maybe sometimes difficult or lacking. So I'm just wondering, like, what type of things did people have to have in place so that they can effectively manage these programs that have been funded? Again, it's all about integrity. It's all about following through. In my mind, this question is all about continuing to follow through with what you've said you were going to do.
I think that helps. I think it's important. I think every pastor that is following Jesus wants to be integrous, right? And I think it is the heart of faith-based leaders to do what we say we're going to do. And we have to hold ourselves accountable to that first of all. And then we can hold our staff and the people in our church, and we can lead people into that. But operating a grant is obviously demands integrity so that you actually do what you say you're going to do, and you follow up with what you're going to do. And I think most churches, it's not like you have to develop something new. I think if you already have a rhythm of meetings and holding people accountable and training your staff, then it's a natural, just something more that you're doing, that you're already doing. It's not like you need to add something. Because if you're going to continue to add and add, then that can become more burdensome than helpful. And grant funding is, in our perspective, it comes along to enhance and to strengthen, not to become a heavy burden on top of what you're already doing.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So you guys have been doing this for quite a while. How many years have you been doing this? Like getting grants and operating ministries?
Let's see. since about 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
And so
18, 20 years.
multiple millions of dollars that you guys have been able to access to do what God's called you to do in Miami, which is just amazing. But so people hear that, well, they've been doing it for 20 years. Of course, they're going to say it's easy, right? They've been doing this for 20 years. But what's a simple story that would prove this is not as complicated as what people think? Do you have one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, our church started in 2005. We got our first grant in 2006. So, I mean, we were a skeleton crew with no money. Mm-hmm. That's
in Miami.
In Miami.
Inner city Miami.
Inner city Miami with no money. But we really had a heart for our community. And one of the first things that we did was, one, is that we began to say, we value the needs of our community. We want to reach people for Jesus. I mean, that's the heart of every pastor, is to reach people for Jesus. But it's hard to reach people for Jesus when their bellies are hungry, they haven't slept, they have very felt needs. But when you are able to meet those needs, then it opens the door for Jesus, right? And so in our community, we had and still have lots of people that were unemployed because they did not speak English. We're a predominantly Spanish-speaking community. And so we said, well, how can we help our community? So one of the first things that we did, well, you know what? We had a lot of people in our team at the time that were educators or former educators that knew how to teach. Well, let's teach English. Let's start teaching people English. Did we have certification to teach English? No. We just had a heart and a passion to do that. And out of that desire, we were able to, there was a program that we found out about called a starter grant, which essentially was a long shot chance on organizations like us that had very few people, little money, and they said, give us an idea of a proposal of something that you want to start, hence the name Starter Grant. And so we said, we want to teach people how to speak English. We want to work with Spanish speakers and teach them how to speak English. They said, okay, how are you going to do that? This was the question back. How are you going to do that? So we sat down and brainstormed and strategized and put together our entire proposal. No one told us what to do. We came up with a proposal and we said, you know what? At the time, Rosetta Stone was like big. Let's buy Rosetta Stone and buy computers, and we'll open up our church on the hours that we're not doing church activity. And we'll allow parents to come and community people to come, and they can just do Rosetta Stone because we didn't have qualified people to teach it. We had software. And so they said, hey, let's try it. And so that was the very first starter grant. We got $50,000 to do a starter grant to buy computers, to buy licensing for English language software. And it worked. And we were like, well, that was easy. And that began the confidence, saying it was something that was birthed out of a passion. And we found something, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. We were able to find something that aligned with the passion that we had. It met a need for the community as well. Because I can guarantee you, every commissioner in the community wants people working. And if people can't work because they can't speak the language, here we are solving a problem as well. Because now we can go to our city officials and say, look, we've got 30 people that are in our church on 2 nights a week. They're spending 2 hours, 2 nights a week learning the language so that they can become employable and actually contribute to the community. Like, what commissioner, or what city mayor, council person is not going to be happy about that? And so that was our start. That was the very first thing that we did on our own. Yeah.
Incredible. You made it sound really easy. So
well, I mean, I don't know if it was our naivety or just stepping out into that space, but I mean, we were passionate about what we wanted to do, and we felt like this is an opportunity. So we're going to knock on every door that we possibly can, because we feel God's called us to this community. He hasn't called us to not infiltrate ourselves into the community and meet the need. And so, that's kind of what we did. We just said, we're going to go for it and see what happens.
No, that's incredible. That's incredible. So I was going to ask a question, but I think I have the answer to the question. So I'm not going to ask the question. I'm just going to give the answer, because there might be some pastors thinking, man, I've got these things that I've been wanting to do in my community. I've got these outreach things, these things that I believe God's called me to do. I've not been able to figure out how I can get it started. Here's what I want you to know. In this podcast, we're not just trying to give you a bunch of information, but Dianna and Keisha would love to consult with you. They would love to help you access funds that are available, get you set up to potentially access some grants, but you're going to have to take the first step and reach out to them. So one of you, give me, what's the best way a pastor or leader that's paying attention to this podcast right now can reach out and get in touch with you guys so that they can get on the road to getting some grants?
Gotcha. Well, one way is you can email us at the305unlimited@gmail.com. We always recommend people get our book. You can find our book on Amazon, or you can find it on provisionforthevisionbook.com. It's got the book. It has a master class with it, where you can watch video recordings that teach you along the way. And you can also visit our website at the305unlimited.com.
There you go. There's about 3 different steps you can take, and I would. Second, you need to get this book. That's amazing. That might be the best place to start, because this will get you a broader understanding of what you need to do, of what's possible, so that when you make contact with him, you're actually already a couple steps down the road, and that would probably serve you well. Dianna and Keisha, thank you so much for joining with us on this podcast today. Incredible information, but I'm excited about the next podcast, because in our next podcast, they're going to join us, but we're going to be talking about building fundable ministries and programs with integrity. So we're just going to take this conversation to a new place, but you're going to want to join us this next time. And I also want to let you know about some exciting things that are happening with Destiny Network. May 13th is an important day coming up in Virginia Beach. We have a church planting intensive. If you're thinking about maybe planting a campus or a church, you need to go, or you need to send one of your team members to this church planting intensive May 13th in Virginia Beach. You can find all the information by going to destiny-network.com and then click on the events page. You're going to find that event. Then you're going to find another incredibly special event, because coming up September 22nd through the 24th is Affecting Destiny. It's the Genesis. Going back to the Genesis, you're not going to want to miss it. Affecting Destiny is going to be in Clewiston, Florida, but you can go ahead and you can get registered now. Make plans on being with us at Affecting Destiny, September 22nd through the 24th, 2026. Thanks so much for joining with us for the DNA podcast. I hope this was a blessing to you. You got some information. Maybe you're motivated to take that next step with the vision that God's given you. We're standing with you.